funny fiscal outlook. It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable, right? Unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done, right? So it's very serious.
Oh no, it's all very serious. Did you hear what he said, by the way? Like the word. See, this is what goes on in my head when I see clips like that, Joe Rossinello. The word unsustainable. He's being an honest broker from everything you could see. He's talking, that's Canadian politics, right? He's talking about, I'm assuming, the Canadian budget and everything else. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Let's go into the breach. We're going to be talking about digital currency tonight, Kash Patel, Trump sending in some troops, and some defiant governors and mayors. So we're going to get into all that. But here's the thing, Joe. Sustainable. But you can only use the word sustainable if you're talking to somebody who cares about sustaining our economy and our well-being and our prosperity, and saying, well, if you say to somebody, Joe, listen, this is unsustainable, it's only because I actually care that it's unsustainable. But this guy, and I know that he does, but I mean, I don't know if people are just delusional or they're afraid to be called conspiracy theorists or whatever the case might be. They know it's not sustainable, dude. Why do you think they're doing what they're doing? Everything they do is unsustainable, but it's by design. Joe, help me, Joe.
Joe, that is a great point. They're pushing an ideology. They are fully aware that it's unsustainable, and they're fully aware that it does not comport with your needs and wants. It's an ideology.
Yeah.
They're changing the direction of Western democracy because it no longer works for the powers that be, because they cannot control the information flow. That is what you're watching across Europe and Canada. They're just ahead of it as far as like us. We're catching up, but we'll get there. That is exactly what you're doing. And that is a wonderful point. It has nothing to do with sustainability. They're fully aware that it isn't sustainable for you.
That's the thing. I mean, I've been in places in my life where there's been a politician or two where they're talking about kicking the can. Well, we're not going to kick the can down the road. We're not going to do that anymore to our children or our grandchildren. In the meantime, in my life, that was probably 25 years ago. That guy's now got great grandchildren, and he's kicking the can down the road towards them too. My point is, until we understand that there are people that hate the world, they hate people, they hate God, they certainly hate Catholic civilization, as Taylor Marshall said. Let's not call it Western civilization. Let's call it Catholic civilization. They hate all these things. So why am I shocked when I find that they're doing something that's unsustainable? Dude, I would tell a guy like that, you're preaching to the choir. They know it's not sustainable. We know it's not sustainable. We want to stop it. They don't. Let me tell you something that's not sustainable. And Joe, this pertains to America. You just said it's going to happen to America, right? So that clip was from Canada, along with George Soros doing the snake thing with Gavin Newsom. But here's the thing: everything. This is not conspiracy theory. These are just stone cold facts. Everything that they're doing is unsustainable. Now, the case in point that I would say is this: Chicago is unsustainable, but this guy knows it.
Well, look, our corporate counsel has been in constant communication with our attorney general for several months now. And I just wanted to offer this up. A couple of years ago, I said very candidly that the right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to sit in right now, because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America.
That's right.
He's more interested in giving billions of dollars to other nations, while farmers in urban cities around this country are literally being destabilized. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's through executive order, or whether it's through the brave women and men who are serving as rapid responders. We literally have people who are volunteering in this city on the southwest side, the northwest side, all over this city to make sure that we're protecting children from being separated from their families. And we're talking about volunteers who are literally putting themselves at risk of being shot and killed by the federal government. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's our continuous struggle for liberation through organizing, and whether it's through executive action or whether it's through law, it would be nice if we actually had lawmakers in Washington that would actually hold this president accountable. And if they won't do it, then the city of Chicago will, using every single tool that's available to us.
Now, this is a dangerous guy.
He needs to be arrested.
He really does. He needs to be
No
arrested.
lie.
Now, he says that people like us want a civil war. No, sir. No. Shame on you, because I don't want a civil war. What I want is real civil wars, Joe, bloody civil wars, they're bloody. The place that Trump wants to send in those troops is into a place that's bloody because of guys like him and all his predecessors that have allowed Chicago to become a war zone. And that is not hyperbole on my part. If you or me, forget about the young black kids that go walking through the south side of Chicago. If you or me walk through the south side of Chicago on any given night, there is a very good possibility we will be shot and killed. That's the truth of the matter that guy doesn't want to hear. So he wants to deflect to civil war and fascism. Go ahead, Joe. Go.
He doesn't care. Because the first role of government, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, is to protect people. And Chicago, for decades, has failed.
That's right.
At that role. The government, as in the federal government, should have gone into Chicago years ago. Years ago. When 50 people a weekend are getting shot, you're either not doing your job or you can't do your job. And frankly, at that point, you should raise your hand and say, could you help me? If you cared about people. But he doesn't.
Right.
Because they're moving an ideology. The ideology is simple. Destabilize the American cities. And he is a tool that is a part of that ideology. Right. And it has to stop. First of all, he's not even good at what he does. Did you catch urban farmers? Farmers.
Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah.
He doesn't even know. He's not even good as a talking head.
Well, Joe,
that's number one.
The only farmers in Chicago.
I should be the mayor of Chicago.
Well, you should
if I
be.
was
I'd
sinister, if I was a sinister man, I could do a better job than that. If I was going to lie straight through my teeth.
But here's the thing. See, the problem with guys like him, he doesn't care about people like us. He knows that we know he's full of crap. Okay. He's trying to appeal to certain people out there who might not have, they're not dumb. See, we're not like the left. We don't call people dumb. They might lack some information. Maybe they're just working too damn hard because the government forces you to, and they don't have the time to read the news. Okay. Having said that, he's trying to appeal to somebody to try to convince them of something about Donald Trump. The only malfeasance going on is his and Pritzker. We're going to play Pritzker in a minute. The only malfeasance is theirs. The only civil war is what's going on the streets of Chicago. That's and more importantly, that is black people killing black people.
He's sending uninformed people to their death. That is what that message was. And frankly, if that is to happen, and there's a strong likelihood that it will, because expect the army to go into Chicago shortly, he will be safe. He lives a millionaire's lifestyle. I will guarantee it. I would bet a lot of money on that. He lives large, that man. He is not going to die, but ill-informed and brainwashed people will. And if they don't die, their neighborhoods will burn. And when their neighborhoods burn, they will stay burned, as in they will not rebuild for decades.
Well, look at Newark, New Jersey.
That's the perfect example. And it's reality. They're destabilizing the cities of America. This is part of the strategy. And it has to stop.
Well, there's only one way to stop it.
Joe, it's not even debatable. This has to end.
Well, here's the person who's not debating this, quite frankly, is Donald Trump. Trump is not debating this. Trump is basically just waiting for the moment when he's going, just like he did in D.C., he's going to send in the troops. This guy's talking about, well, we went to our lawyers and the attorney general and dude, the troops are coming in and they may arrest you if you get in their way, because you're the one who's allowing chaos and disorder to occur in your city under your watch. The same with this. I mean, I was about to call him a name, but Joe Rossinello doesn't want me to call people names. I'll just play the clip. You tell me if you agree that he's FAT.
Let me ask you just first about this call to your fellow governors around the country. What are you asking them to do here to support you?
Well, let's start with we should stand as one against the idea that Donald Trump has the ability to call up our National Guard against our will. I want to remind you that just last year, Joe Biden tried to call up National Guard, federalize them, to take Air National Guard and move them into the Space Force. And all 50 governors signed onto a letter, including, I might add, Greg Abbott from Texas, saying that it was improper for the President of the United States to call on governors to either send their National Guard or to federalize the National Guard so that the president could use them however he wanted to. Now, this year, of course, Greg Abbott is a tool of Donald Trump. He's his lackey, and he is, in fact, doing exactly what Donald Trump wants and going against exactly what Greg Abbott said he would do last year. So this is a problem. The National Governors Association, under Governor Stitt from Oklahoma, who's chair, seems unwilling to stand with the rest of us governors, Governor Kotek, Governor Newsom, and others, to prevent Trump from taking our National Guard, federalizing them, and then using them either against us or against other states.
Okay, let's leave that alone. This is where, if Dante was writing now, J.B. Pritzker is in one of those deeper circles of hell, because I'm sorry, Joe, you're going to get mad. He's a scumbag liar, just like Brandon Johnson. He's a scumbag liar because he knows that Biden was using and wanted to use the National Guard for political reasons. Donald Trump wants to use the National Guard to protect people from getting killed in cities where there's mayors that are allowing them to be killed because they have the hamstring on law enforcement. So Pritzker is just such a loathsome, contemptible human being. And then he's calling Abbott names and he's going back and forth. He knows there's no difference. Well, I wish the governors would join me and Newsom. Oh, there's a shock. Another guy who's presided over a disaster and watched the ruination of great American cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles. So you want, let's say, the governor of Oklahoma or the governor of Texas or any other governor want to stand with Newsom? Anybody want to stand with his track record when it comes to law and order and safety in the streets? And Pritzker's going to say what? Trump's being what? A fascist? When you're not doing your job, Mr. Pritzker, Governor Pritzker, and Mayor Johnson, okay, you are the danger. You are the one that's allowing people to die, not Donald Trump. You know what those troops are not going to do? They're not going to be killing innocent people in Chicago. You know what's happening right now under your watch? Innocent people in Chicago are getting killed by other people in Chicago that the National Guard is going to go in there to stop because you won't.
Couple comments. First of all, Pritzker is running for president starting now. That is
zero chance of winning.
Oh, I know that, but this is
zero chance of winning.
This is what he's doing. He has picked a lane, just as Newsom, who's running for president now, has picked the lane. Newsom's lane is come to the center because he believes that the party is basically a failing party, which is probably the smart bet, but no one believes him because he destroyed California. Pritzker, on the other hand, is basically in the AOC lane. His bet is that the party is going to continue down this radical left track, and I'm going to get with them because I think I can get the nomination. That is what this is all about. That's the first point. The second point, once again, he is part, just as the mayor of Chicago, is part of a larger ideology to destroy the cities, which will usher in people basically begging for change, which will then vote in a cultural and a social revolution, changing America. That is what that man is for. That is the ideology he is about, as are many other people in our government. By the way, he's so rich, it doesn't matter who he votes for, what government is in power, it doesn't matter. His life is so far above the average American.
Yep.
And he, once again, will be safe as Chicago falls into a conflict with the American government, whereby many people will die. Many of them are ill-informed and brainwashed once again. This is a travesty. He should be arrested tonight.
No. Listen, I agree 1,000%. And as far as it goes, when they talk about sending in the National Guard, Johnson sent the National Guard into Newark during the Newark riots. Okay. Who was it? You were texting with our producer.
Oh, let me just give some perspective on that. People say that's never happened. Well,
of course it has.
JFK sent in to Mississippi to desegregate the schools at gunpoint to Ole Miss 30, look this up, everybody, 30,000 troops. 30,000. They put tents on the campus. Tanks were on the campus. Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne to Arkansas. Donald Trump sent 500 National Guard troops that basically are school teachers 5 days a week, most of which are probably out of shape. That's who Donald Trump sent in. And that would, the two examples that I just gave you, that's within the last, say, 60 years.
Right.
This is not an uncommon thing, and they did it at gunpoint. So my point is, Donald Trump, if you ask me, is not a fascist. Donald Trump is a moderate. If anything, he has to end this. And I will have no problem if he sent
none
first air Chicago. Here's the deal. People are dying. Regular people are dying week in and week out. This has been going on for decades. It has to stop. Portland, Oregon is the Thunderdome. It cannot be that way. Sorry, there are taxpayers there that are not interested in people defecating on the street. Sorry.
No, listen, if you ask Joe, if you ask most people in these cities, look, except for, remember, the cities are controlled by a lot of people who work for the municipal government. Okay, so we know that a lot of people living in Chicago, in Newark, in these places, they're going to listen to Pritzker. They're going to listen to Johnson. Your average person in these cities, okay, and we've covered this now for a couple years when it came down to it with Antifa and everything else, burning things down. The people who are being hurt, Mayor Johnson, the people being hurt, Governor Pritzker, okay, are not you, as Joe Resinello says, because you're all rich, and Pritzker's family has a B in front of their illionaire. They're billionaires, okay? But you're going to try to sit there and you're going to call Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump has done things that pissed Joe and I off and disappointed us, but you're going to call him all these names. You're going to call Abbott all these names because you're allowing people to die in your states and your cities. And what do you think, Mr. Pritzker? What do you think, Mr. Johnson? You think we're also, do they really believe their rhetoric, Joe, that we're also racist? Because you know what a racist would say? Let them in Chicago all kill themselves. We don't say that. We support them sending in the National Guard because we want the black kids to stop killing each other. We are tired of them killing each other. We're tired of them killing innocent people in the streets of Chicago. That's why I said if Dante was alive, these guys have a special place. But there is a reason legally that Donald Trump, or there's a means by which Donald Trump could do that.
For a weekend. What?
The Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
Do you see what he's saying? And he's not lying. I don't care what they say. I don't think for a second for one instant that this guy's looking for more power for himself. He's tired of people getting killed. You see what's going on in the Middle East today, Joe? See what's going on in the Middle East and the deal that he's brokering in the Middle East? Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Because he hates Arabs or he hates Jews or this group or that group, or he's just trying to consolidate more power for America. He's doing that because he's tired of seeing people getting killed, needlessly getting killed. It's the same thing domestically. If all these people are dying and you're not doing anything about it as a mayor, a governor, a judge, you're doing nothing about this, all right? Well, guess what? Then you, in my view, and I'm not a lawyer, and Alan Dershowitz would probably call me stupid. I don't really care. You're an insurrectionist is what you are. Because if you're not doing anything within your power and you have the power to do it to stop this from happening, that means you're allowing it and you're promoting it. That means you're an insurrectionist in my view. And whether or not I'm right, it really doesn't matter because Trump's going to send in those troops and he'll use the Insurrection Act to do it.
Well, Trump has legal means to do it. There's no dispute over that, and it has been done. All of the posturing like we're going to get a federal court judge, no, wrong. Trump has the law on his side. It's not about the law right now. It's about winning minds and hearts. It's the same thing like with the government shutdown. What they're both basically positioning themselves to do right now is to win over the people. Trump is basically, his play is when I send these troops in and the mainstream media attacks me, do I have enough juice from the bully pulpit to convince the American people and they're not going to turn on me? And Pritzker's play is basically, I want you to come in. If there's violence and if people die, we will use that against you. And I'm going to use my bully pulpit against you to weaken you. That's the game right now. It has nothing to do with the law. The law is established. It's established law. He has every right to do it. And frankly, he could do it today. And there's no problem under the Insurrection Act. Let's put it this way. If you look at how that has been used in the past, we'll use the desegregation of schools after Brown versus the Board of Education. That was done at gunpoint. Now, that was a horrible, horrible, horrible crime committed against African Americans in this country. It was a disgrace. But if you look at, we'll just use Chicago as an example of how many African American people have been killed, if you ask me, all of which could have been avoided if the police were doing their job. For decades, it's probably tens of thousands over the decades.
Right.
It could be as bad, if not worse.
You're right.
If I'm not undermining desegregation, so please don't get me wrong. What I am saying is both of which were crimes against African Americans. And in the case of Chicago, over, say, the last 10 years, tens of thousands of people have been shot.
Right.
This has to stop.
It has to. It has to. No, and God willing, Trump's going to, yes, God willing, but Trump will stay strong on this, and he's going to try to establish order. And Pritzker, you're right. And this is why I mentioned earlier before about Dante's Inferno. Pritzker's going to find himself there because he's going to allow those people to die. That's the problem, Joe. He's going to use them as martyrs to, I don't know whatever cause this guy has. He's just a globalist as far as I'm concerned. He's just another elitist as far as I'm concerned. We're going to get into them in a minute at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're going to talk about the digital currency. We're going to talk a little bit about Canada. But here, let's talk about an insurrection.
Some Republicans, Mr. Director, argue that Nancy Pelosi staged January 6th and the Select Committee covered it up. Based on what you personally know, what are the verifiable events in the lead-ups? And do you, I know you don't speculate, you just deal with facts.
I'm in a unique position. Remember, I was Chief of Staff for the Department of Defense on January 6th. We were responsible for the deployment of the National Guard. And what I was forced to testify 2 years ago at great personal cost has now once again, just like Russiagate, been proven true because all I do is speak the truth. On January, actually in the days before January 6th, we were in the Oval Office where the President Trump at the time, authorized, pursuant to law, up to 10 to 20,000 National Guard. We took that authorization because the law's second part required a request from who? Nancy Pelosi and the Metropolitan Police and the mayor at the time. And what did they say?
So we can leave it there because that's the most important part about it. Okay. Donald Trump also asked for National Guard to protect members of the Senate and members of the House, to protect against chaos, knowing that in any crowd, whether it's a friendly crowd or not friendly, any crowd, Joe, could get unruly. Any crowd could get disorderly. Okay. There's always some cuckoo birds out there, as my mother would call them. And in his prudence, he said, well, he put it, as Kash Patel said, he asked for 10,000, 20,000 National Guard troops. She said no. You know where I'm going with this? We just played Johnson from the mayor of Chicago. We played J.B. Pritzker. Kash Patel talking about Nancy Pelosi. Joe, everything is political theater. It's all political
theater. It's just to win the minds and hearts of people. You're 100% correct.
The problem is on a stage, Joe.
That's it.
On a stage, when you're acting on a stage and you fire a gun, it's a fake gun and a fake bullet. There is no bullet. It's just a fake gun, and you pretend that you're shooting somebody. That's when on a stage play. Okay. In real life, what these people are doing, Nancy Pelosi did, what Pritzker is doing, what Johnson is doing, what they're all doing by allowing people to die is it ain't a game. If these kids are dead, they're dead. Look at DC. All of a sudden, DC's out of the news, Joe. Why is that? Because what Trump did was successful, no?
Listen, ultimately, that whole January 6th thing, if you ask me, Trump could have used more judgment. He did not order people to go to the Capitol, but basically it was a hostile crowd, and he probably should not have shown up that day and spoke. In fact, he shouldn't have. With that said, though, that which was just stated by Patel is reality, and Nancy Pelosi refused to have the troops sent in. That could have easily calm the crowd down. That's why you have National Guard. That doesn't make you a fascist. That makes you prudent. Prudent. You use what's at your disposal, and sometimes such a measure is needed. In that case, in January 6th, it's proven that it would have been needed, and one person would not have died that day.
Right.
At this particular time in Portland and in Chicago, it is prudent to use them again. And I'll take it one step further. We should send in the army. Forget about the National Guard. Those cities are out of control. We should have done that in LA. We cannot have destabilized major cities in America. Period. End of story. It does not serve anyone.
Right.
And that is your first responsibility as a public servant, is to keep people safe. If you are not doing so, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, you should be removed. If you are a DA and you are not prosecuting people who commit crime, you should be removed. If you are a judge and you are not putting people in prison who commit crimes, could harm people, you are not doing your job. You should be removed. This is common sense. And frankly, it's all part of the strategy to destabilize the American city. Period. Yeah. End of story. And it has to end.
As much destabilization as they could muster. Okay. We know that that's exactly what they're going to want. I mean, look, that's the way they gain power. Civil unrest. Look at every way that the government and governments over time amass more power for themselves. It's usually a
crisis, Joe. They take advantage of a crisis. That's the game plan.
But but here's the thing, though. 9/11, we were attacked, okay? And obviously, there are those who cynically use that event to create a lot of things that Americans don't want. And in hindsight, we shouldn't have, like the Patriot Act, okay, and other things, all right? COVID is another example. How much power did the government and how much wealth got transferred because of COVID? So you got...
Let me make a point on that. You don't get that power back. Once they take the power, you don't get it back. Get that through your head. Power is taken. That's how power works. They took it from you. To elaborate what Joe Pasillo just said, Patriot Act, they took your privacy rights away. That means they can get any information on your personal phone without a warrant at their discretion. That is a constitutional breach.
Right.
Period. Look what they did with COVID. They froze the economy to unseat Donald Trump. Don't think they didn't use that to their political advantage. Look at the ramifications of what took place. Kids didn't go to school for a year. People lost their businesses. I know people that have lost their businesses. Me. People probably lost homes, and they could care less.
No, they don't care.
And this is
They don't
my
care.
point. It was the
Yeah.
largest wealth transfer in the history of America. Look it up.
Right.
This is how it works, and they're not giving it back.
No. Well, like you said, at the end of the day, it's got to be taken back. I'm hoping that with some of these things that Donald Trump's doing, he's in the process of doing that and putting them on notice that they're not going to be able to have their way. They're not going to be able to stage their political theater. We are taking power back, which the only thing is it's going to be, I wish it was quicker, but it's got to be one step at a time. One of the ways they're going to take a lot of power from us is, oh, and by the way, before I go, when you talk about pushback and when you talk about people who are going to be just A-OK or believe they're going to be A-OK. Now, I don't know what the result is going to be, but we know recently James Comey was indicted. Letitia James was now indicted for, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong out there, you can fact check me, fraud. I think it was mortgage fraud or whatever it was thrown against her. See, that's Trump when I like him. He's saying, you came after me with BS charges. But you know what happened? You should really make sure that your own house is clean. And Comey, I really hope Comey ends up in jail. Letitia James, and I hope that's just a start. You want to know why, Joe? If people start going to jail for their corruption and everything they tried to do to Donald Trump, meaning really what they really tried to do to us because we had the audacity to vote for Donald Trump, okay? When people start really going to jail, and I mean jail for what they did, then maybe we have a little bit of
I'll
a little
believe it when
leeway.
I see it, though.
I agree.
I know what
I
you're
agree.
saying. I'll believe
But
it.
it's good to see a little fear. And it's good to at least see Letitia James and James Comey have to pay lawyers' fees like they did to General Flynn and like they did to Peter Navarro, okay? And people like that. That's right. They knew what they were doing, by the way, real quick. I don't mean to go off on a rant. They knew what they were doing. I'll file bullshit charges against you, but I'll drive you into the poorhouse. You'll have to go for hundreds of thousands of dollars for lawyers. I can't wait for Letitia James to have to go and spend all that money for attorneys for herself. And the same thing with Comey. But here's Canada.
Security and freedom can coexist. The government can both defend our telecommunications networks and protect the rights and freedoms of all Canadians. Bill C-8 may secure networks, but as it stands, it risks imprisoning citizens digitally and denying them fundamental justice. In so doing, it undermines the very freedoms that we seek to protect. Let us not mistake security for liberty. Let us not trade our rights of Canadians for a false sense of protection. Mr. Speaker, let me give you a concrete example of how Bill C-8 could affect an ordinary Canadian. Imagine Sarah, a citizen, frustrated with the government program that she believes was mismanaged and that was corrupt. In her frustration, she posts online, threatening to expose government corruption. She threatens to reveal secret information she has collected about the program. The government views her post as a threat to telecommunications system, and so quietly issues an order under Bill C-8. Her internet provider receives the direction to shut down her internet and phone services, all without a court warrant, and all without court order. The same provider is legally forbidden from disclosing that reasons why Sarah's internet was suspended. If the provider were to explain, they could face penalties and even jail. The next morning, Sarah is shocked to find that she cannot access her mail, her bank account, or work portal. Her social media accounts are frozen. She cannot contact her friends, family, and colleagues. She has been cut off entirely from the digital world, and she has no idea why. This is a...
I have to cut it off there only because, Joe, the vein's starting to pop out of my head. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. First of all, you heard her. She gave a clear example of how things are going in Canada, all right, and what can happen to you if you're not a good little machine, all right, what can happen to you. But it's the idea that we have to sit here day after day after day. And by the way, Charlie Kirk getting shot did not stop these people from continuing to call people on the right fascist, Nazis, haters, and everything else. Okay? They've not stopped any of that, knowing that that directly led to Charlie Kirk getting shot. There is a direct causal relationship with the way they describe Donald Trump, the right wing in America, and those who voted for the right wing in America as fascist and Nazi. There is a causal relationship between that and Charlie Kirk's death. That's number one. Number two, I'm getting so tired of that they're able, maybe less so now than in the past, but they're still able to get away with calling everybody else totalitarian, and they're just so dangerous, and they're a fascist. Did you see what that woman was describing? What's more totalitarian than that? Joe, you got to help me because the vein's popping out.
Joe, that's North Korea. I mean, like what she's...
Isn't it, though? Isn't it?
It's North Korea, and this is not North Korea. It's Canada. Americans should take note. In the UK, in 2023, 12,000 people were arrested for posts. 12,000. She gave a concrete example based upon a piece of legislation in Canada that you could basically have potentially your bank account frozen. And by the way, that already happened in Canada during COVID. This is not democracy. And here's another thing. America has to call these people out. We started to do so. We mentioned this in the past in Munich, J.D. Vance, he did that in Europe. Countries like England, countries like Canada, countries like France, to name three, they no longer share our values. They don't. We have to call them out, and frankly, new alliances have to be formed. We are not here to partner with totalitarian states. I'm sorry. And if people, as in the people of those countries, don't like what I just said, then vote these individuals out. And if you can't vote them out, it's time for civil disobedience. Because they are not only taking your power, they are going to make you slaves. That is what the digital ID is about, and that is what digital currency is about. Starmer in the UK has said out of his own mouth, you will not work in England unless you have a digital ID.
Right.
That is a step towards slavery. We have nothing in common with that government anymore. Zero.
You know what I'd like to put on all these people? I'd like to, like those little remote zappers. Like you have to be required to wear one if you're in public service, like if you're a politician or if you're in the media. And when you use the word Orwell or fascist or anything like that, you get zapped. Like you get zapped. Like you're not allowed to say that, because like I like to break it to these people when they say, "Oh, that's so Orwellian. That's just really, really totalitarian." I hate to break it to you, sweetheart, but here's the point: Orwell was writing about you. You are the ones going like this, worshiping Big Brother. You're the ones who are falling at the feet of the totalitarian state. You are the one who has drunk the Kool-Aid, and you want to see the deaths of all the proles, of all those people who just dared to say, I'm not going along with this. Okay, I'm not. That's why it's interesting in 1984 that Winston, okay, that the main character, in order for him to come around, remember something too, Joe, about them when they gain some sort of real power. See, they know that they can't, and this is true in real life, not just in 1984, because Stalin did the same thing. And the communists in Cuba did the same thing. When they know in their heart, you're just going along to get along, hoping something will be better down the road. And you don't believe in the revolution. You're not part of the revolution. You're forced to go along with it, at least so you can figure something out. What they do is then they torture you. And that's what they did to Winston in 1984. That's what they're doing by putting those 12,000 people in jail in England. They're causing you pain, okay? Real pain by sticking you in jail. They're doing that, and eventually that pain, that pressure, that torture just gets harder and harder. With Winston, it was the rats because he was afraid of rats. They knew his thoughts, and it was the rats that he was afraid of. And what did he do? He became a compliant citizen, okay, loving Big Brother because of fear, outright fear. And these people do the exact same thing. We know they do the exact same thing because we see it all the time. Joe, let me give you one final comment before we move on to the World Economic Forum. Joe?
No, Joe, you said it perfectly. Just move on. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, to be truthful with you, ultimately, people have to see it for what it is. It's a real threat to freedom. And democracy is dying in the West. That's it. It's
Right.
real. This is not conspiracy. It's actually happening.
It's in your face. Did you? Before I play this clip, I want everybody to realize something. Joe, why is it that when it's the oligarchs, the World Economic Forum, and the people at the UN, they always put up somebody who's saying the same damn thing, and they're always from a different country? I think the subliminal messaging there is, don't you see? The whole world is on our side. Let me play this nauseating clip.
One final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC, and I think also extremely dangerous for central banks. Because ultimately, if you have different units of central bank money with different characteristics, or if you use central bank money as a conduit for economic policies in a very targeted way, or more broadly for social policies, that could really affect the integrity of central bank money and the integrity and independence of central banks. So there are wonderful notions of things that can be done with digital money, but again, I fear that technology could take us to a better place, but equally has the potential to take us to a pretty dark place.
Now, why is it? I just got to ask. I don't know if he's Indian or not, okay? But it always seems like, I remember my money and banking class at Seton Hall University. He was like a little short Indian guy. He was looking just like him, all right? And he's talking about M1 and M2 and money supply and all that kind of stuff. And he says it very pleasantly. You can't really hate that guy because he's like, if a strong wind comes along, it'll blow the guy away. In the meantime, he's as dangerous could be. Listen to what he said. Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you.
They're saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying the quiet part out loud. It's about control.
Yep.
Any person, even if you're super rich, even if you're like worth like $50 million, if you're for this, you're crazy.
Right.
Because here's the deal. What happens if the political parties change? For instance, say you're liberal, and we have a liberal government for 12 years, and you put this on the books, and say you really get Mussolini. Trump's not Mussolini. I got news for you. But say you get him. What happens to you? Any person who is for this is crazy, Joe. Any human being that puts their name next to this vote is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it.
I think you're saying it exactly right. Let me ask you a question. If, let's say, because hypothetically, if central bank digital currency was here, and let's say, for argument's sake, you got a right-wing government that took power, and central bank digital currencies in place, and that right-wing government's feeling a bit vindictive. Let me ask you a question. We played him earlier. He's worth $1 billion. Can that same right-wing government now use central bank digital currency to shut down J.B. Pritzker's ability to buy food?
Of course they could. I'll even take it another step further. You paid for an abortion. They freeze your bank account.
Right.
What stops them from doing that?
Right.
I'm not for abortion, but I'm just using this as a tool. I'll flip the coin. You go to church. and it's not the church they like, they just freeze your bank account.
Right.
They don't even have to argue with you. There's no phone call to be made.
There's no judges.
There's nothing.
Nothing
You just
in
can't
between.
access your money.
Right.
You bought the wrong magazine. You bought Christian Science, whatever magazine, or you bought, frankly, on the other flips, you get a far right president. You buy pornography, they freeze your bank account. Freeze it.
Sure. And again,
how could you possibly give that much power to the government?
Because
Anyone?
they think they have the audacity to think that in a very short period of time they would actually have power, that they could seize enough power that right-wing government will never come into power. That's it has to be, Joe, because they know that power shifts. They know power is going to go from one side to the other.
Well, ultimately, you bring up a good point. Anarchy always brings tyrannical governments. Why? Because someone has to control the crowd. It's either the mob or the strong man. Why do I bring this up? If Trump does not put an end to this anarchy in our cities, what you're going to continue to see is flip-flopping of radical presidents. It's going to get even more radical than Trump. Get that in your head. You may get, say, a Mandani as a president, and then you will get Mussolini in America. And ultimately and eventually, the music stops, the chairs, and one person will sit in the chair, as in what happened in Russia. Russia, after the USSR failed, it was chaos for like 20 years. Organized crime ran the streets of Moscow. Look that up in the 90s. Putin comes in. How does he maintain his power? Through fear. How did Saddam Hussein control all the tribes, all the warring tribes in Iraq? Fear. Well, that is the road that we're on right now. There is chaos. And eventually, if we don't get this under control, mobs always lead to the strong man. And the strong man controls by taking your freedom away, whether it's a right-wing guy or a left-wing guy. That is the direction we're headed. If we don't get this under control now, it has to end.
Listen, that's a perfect place to end it. I got to run, Joe Rossinello. Great conversation as usual at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello going way into the breach. Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. So we do this every week. We're on X, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. So wherever you see us, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. All of our Veritas Catholic Radio Network interviews we also post on social media. We hope you like those too. If you like that content, help us to get out to a wider audience. Thanks once again. Thanks to all our regulars who showed up tonight, as they always do. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere